Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, and we have a monster show here today. That's right, I'm coming straight from my parents' basement. Sam back in the studio. It's Christmas time. I'm down in the basement for a few shows here, Sam.
Live on location. Christmas tree in the background. It's like we never left. It's just back there again.
It's like we never left. Yeah, and I saw you hinting at maybe I'm on the road, interviewing for the Jets job. I can't disclose anything. I just want to get ahead of this. Can't disclose anything. I can't tell you where I stopped on the way back to Massachusetts, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I just found it very interesting that all of a sudden there's announcements of Jets GM candidates being interviewed, and you mysteriously take off driving across the country on a route that would have taken you fairly close to that building.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, just saying, the Jets can only interview people that don't have current jobs with the NFL right now. So technically, I'm on the short list of people they could talk to,
You do not have an NFL job currently.
I do not currently. So, yeah, we have a monster show. Our friend Ross Tucker's coming in to talk all sorts of football things. And we'll love having Ross on the show. We've got Ariel Helwani at the end of the show. We posted this on YouTube the other day, talking Bills. And we'll stitch that on at the end here today for our audio listeners and YouTube as well. And we have our first merch giveaway. Sam, you want to talk about the merch giveaway and what we've come up with here?
Yeah, we got merch up there, link in the description. We ran a little giveaway where we were basically asking for everybody's favorite quirky stat, data point, historical fact, whatever, and we were going to select a couple of winners for merch of their choosing, and we have the winners. Am I announcing them now? Am I reading them out? Is that the idea?
Yeah, you could do the first one. I'll do the second one.
Okay. The first one, this looks like a YouTube comment from Marcus Sniffles. Jerry Rice has the most receiving yards of all time for a player over 40 years old. Tom Brady is in second place.
Wow. With like 6.
Yeah, with like one
right?
catch, whereas Jerry Rice has like 2,000 yards or something past the age of 40. It's insane.
I like that stat. And we have a John on Twitter, John Kyer. 46. Percy Howard had one career reception, which was a touchdown in Super Bowl 10 with Mel Blount in coverage. How about that?
That's a pretty good time to show up with your one play, Play in the Super Bowl against Mel Blount.
Yes. I mean, I feel like those things pop up, right? We talked about that. We may have highlighted that one on the show a couple of weeks ago when we started this thing. Like the random dude who just shows up in the Super Bowl. The David Tyree plays. I love those.
I also
So that's 2 giveaways for our first set of merch giveaways here.
Yeah, we'll be in touch apparently within a day or so, and you can choose whether you want, a hoodie, shirt, or mug from the merch store and which one you want. That one, I feel like that stat is, I would like some more context, because that's impressive if that was the one play, the one opportunity in the game, right, or in his career. You just had one shot, you got a catch against Mel Blount. But if it came on like 15 targets, less impressive,
Maybe it's not as good. So yeah, we'll send more context, but you still get to to choose. So
still
you get to go to the link in the description where we have our merch. If you didn't win, you're gonna buy something probably, right? But if you did win, you could choose a hoodie, shirt, or mug of your choice. So whichever one you want, and we'll have, like we said, we'll be sending DMs out with information on how to claim your prize. So congrats to both of our winners.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk Monday Night Football and even more important stuff coming out of Monday Night Football. It was a doubleheader. We're going to talk the late game first. Falcons 15, Raiders 9. Falcons moved to 7-7. Raiders fell to 2-12. The big news coming out of this, though, is Kirk Cousins once again did not do a whole lot as the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons coming out of the game. Head coach Raheem Morris basically saying, hey, we need to get better. We need to improve at the quarterback position. We need to do better than throwing for 112 yards, getting sacked 3 times. So yesterday, announcement was made. Michael Penix Jr., the rookie, will be the starting quarterback going forward for the Atlanta Falcons. We talked a lot about Penix and this whole dynamic, during draft time, Sam. But here we are, week 16, Michael Penix Jr. getting his first career start.
Yeah, and people have been calling for this for a while, and I think that was the game where it was the sort of biggest indictment of Cousins as the quarterback, where, he was bad under pressure. He didn't get an awful lot of pressure. And yet, despite that, the overall numbers were just weak, right? It was like 11 for 17 for 112 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And it's like the Raiders defense did not dominate. Cousins just wasn't seeing it, wasn't letting it fly particularly comfortably, particularly well. And this was sort of one of the first games where I think, okay, outside of just, a bad game where he makes some bad decisions and throws interceptions, this was the first game where I think you would look at it and say, from a structural standpoint, is the rookie better in this scenario? And the answer they've concluded, obviously, is yes. So, I think it was a game that makes sense to come out of it and conclude Cousins, your time is done.
I want to rewind back to what we thought during draft time, what everyone else was saying, what we were saying. But first, this reminds me a little bit. It's certainly not apples to apples, but the Kansas City Chiefs in 2017, when they had Patrick Mahomes on the bench, they had a decent offense. They had a really good offense, really, with Alex Smith at quarterback. But there was some thought at the time that they might try to raise the ceiling of the offense. They might try to elevate it. They might say, Alex Smith, even though he led the league in deep passing yards that year in passer rating, was still limited, and they've got this Mahomes guy, at practice, tearing up the scout team. Maybe they bring him in for the playoff push, and they end up losing in whatever the wild card or divisional round. And so it's not the same thing, right? Cousins has had glimpse of playing well, very inconsistent in recent weeks. Michael Penix Jr., I'm not going to compare him to Mahomes, but I think he at least raises the ceiling. The same thing I keep saying about Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. I don't know if Penix is going to make rookie mistakes. Probably can't be worse than throwing 9 picks in 5 games.
Right.
And he probably will be able to get the ball down the field to the Darnell Mooney's, Drake London's, Kyle Pitts of the world.
And that's the thing, right? It's that Cousins is also making rookie mistakes. That's really the reason why you might as well throw Penix out there at this stage. We've already seen from preseason, from extremely limited glimpses in the regular season, Penix, if he sees one-on-one coverage on the outside, is basically defaulting to just putting the ball in the air. Like, he will take a shot. So even if he's going to make some basic rookie errors, you're still presumably ending up at a better place because he's at least willing to take the deep shot and has a better arm at this point, or a more functional arm in a greater variety of ways than the current version of a recovering injured Kirk Cousins does. So I think there is a pretty good argument to be made that it is all upside and there's very little downside to making this move happen, because Cousins is not playing as well as he played earlier in the season. Now, the argument would be Cousins might turn that around if you keep him in the starting job, right? We've already seen he's capable of high-level play even as a hobbled version of himself within this offense, and you are closing the door on that by throwing out Michael Penix. So that would be the counter-argument, but I still think, based off the last few weeks, there's a pretty good chance he elevates the offense.
And then if we go back to March and April and what happened this offseason, Cousins was the top free agent quarterback on the board. The Falcons, gave him the 4-year deal, $100 million guaranteed. We were calculating the out, and why were we calculating the out? Because a month later they drafted Michael Penix Jr. at 8 overall, stunned the entire NFL on draft night. Internally, we had a feeling maybe that they loved Michael Penix Jr. Even I wasn't expecting, though, that they would still draft him at 8. And then the debate started. Why would you pay Kirk Cousins? And if you paid Kirk Cousins, when can he get out of the contract? By all accounts, it's after 2 years. Maybe he starts for 2 years, then Michael Penix Jr. takes over. But here we are again at the end of the first year of a 4-year deal with Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. starting. So the Falcons loved him enough at draft time to take him at 8 overall. They had an opportunity to take the top defensive player on the board. A lot of people love Dallas Turner for them. Could have been a Jared Verse, could have been a Laiatu Latu. Doesn't matter who. But they passed up all of those guys to go with Michael Penix Jr. I think our initial take, far different than the rest of NFL media, saying, what are you idiots doing? You already have a quarterback. You don't have 2 quarterbacks. Why would you do this? And I said, hey, this is one of the best storylines we've had in the NFL in a long time. We tell teams to think outside the box, to think aggressively, to think 2 years in advance when it comes to the QB position. And that's what the Falcons are doing. I'm not saying it's going to work, but I love that they're doing it. And here we are again in week 16, probably getting to see just how much they love Michael Penix Jr. if it was warranted, probably getting to see that a little bit sooner than even we expected.
Yeah, definitely sooner than we expected. I mean, this is so there's a few threads to this, right? There were the people that hated the draft pick simply because they didn't think Michael Penix Jr. is a good quarterback, right? So that part we're about to find out or get an indication of whether that was true or not. If you relate him to the rest of this draft class, the rest of this draft class is starting to look pretty good, right? I mean, Jaden Daniels looks spectacular. Bo Nix was giving him a run for the money for Rookie of the Year until last week was a rough outing. Caleb Williams is struggling through his stuff, but like Drake May looks spectacular. So even in this world of like Michael Penix, people had him as 5 or 6 in the draft class. A lot of people, even in that world, like suddenly the draft class looks really good. So Penix might actually be a very good quarterback. So I think taking him number 8 based off this draft class does not feel like a bad decision in a vacuum, which is one thing that people hated. Like he was a fringe first rounder, he's a second round guy, whatever. Right now, I don't think you can outright say taking him in the top 10 based off his comparisons to the rest of this draft class is a mistake in and of itself. Then the second element is, what do you think of the process of drafting a quarterback in the top 10, knowing that you're probably wanting to sit him for the majority, if not all of the first year? You brought up Mahomes. That's happened before where a team has had a viable starting quarterback in place. They're fine with sitting him basically for an entire year. Mahomes basically sat almost for the entirety of that year. Penix Jr. is coming in with a few games to spare. That, I think, is okay as well. Then I think you get to the thing of, okay, what do you think of the process of drafting a quarterback in the top 10 after signing Kirk Cousins to the kind of deal that they signed him to? That, I think, is the one area where you can still criticize what they did and say, if this was the plan, like if you loved Michael Penix Jr. this much, you wanted to take him in the top 10, you might start him before the end of his rookie year, then I think you could probably have found a cheaper / more sound bridge option, right? Like you could have gone the Sam Darnold route instead of signing Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, that's all fair. And again, I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but just to put a bow on the Penix thing, because the Monday Night Football game, kind of irrelevant at this point. A dud game. Falcons get the win. They're a game behind the Bucs in the NFC South. They're going to need some help. The Falcons have the tiebreaker over the Bucs, but that's the other dynamic here. Falcons are making this move while they're in a playoff push here. Yeah. So they've got 3 games remaining, home against the Giants, at Washington, home against the Panthers. Obviously, all 3 winnable games. Toughest game looks like the Commanders, though the Panthers, overall a tough team again. Falcons have a chance to make a move. They'll need the Bucs to lose at least 1 game. Falcons would have to probably win out to have a shot here, but they still have a shot to win the NFC South, and they're making the move to go to Michael Penix Jr. here.
Yeah, I mean, they're making this move essentially assuming that it gives them a better chance of making the playoffs, right? Like it's like a last roll of the dice. It's like Cousins is not creating this comeback or this run that we need to go on. We actually think the rookie gives us a better shot of making this happen. That speaks to itself. If this is how it works, like if Penix comes in, he's the starter from now on, he looks good, he's their starting quarterback going forward, and TBD how good he is, what would your overall summation of that offseason process be for the Falcons? They signed Kirk Cousins to a pretty big veteran deal. A month later, they come back, they draft Michael Penix Jr. in the top 10. What would your overall analysis of that as a process be?
If Michael Penix Jr. is the guy, and even though they have to pay dead money to Kirk Cousins to move on from him next year, I think they win. I think that's a win for the Falcons. We talk a lot about the Falcons. They had the worst quarterback situation, or at least bottom 3 over the last 2 years. So they took extreme measures to fix it. Reminds me a little bit of the Cardinals a few years back. They drafted Josh Rosen in the first round. Then the second year, the next year, they had the number 1 overall pick. They took Kyler Murray. You could look at that in totality over a 2-year period and say they gave up 2 first-rounders to find their quarterback. Great. Good process by the Cardinals. Good process by not, buying into the sunk cost that is Josh Rosen. I think with the Falcons, you could say they paid a free agent contract and a number 8 overall pick to get a quarterback. it's a hefty price, but 2 years from now, nobody's going to care because you have your quarterback, the dead money's gone, and you've got your, first contract quarterback still, and you've got your guy to build around. So I think it's okay. I agree with you. Like, were there better options? Like, if they went 1 year, $10 million for a bridge quarterback instead of Kirk Cousins, in hindsight, yes, absolutely. But I think the totality of it, to go get your guy, and at the end of the day, you have him, I think it's all worth it for the Falcons. And that was what we said from a process standpoint at the time, right?
Right, but that's why
at the end of the day, you get your guy, it's okay.
But that's why I don't think you can look at it through the lens of Michael Penix, right? I think because if he works out, whatever you do to get the quarterback, if that quarterback works out, it was all worth it, right? Like, from a process standpoint, you can't really evaluate it by if Penix is good or not. So I think the variables are from the Kirk Cousins side of things, right? You gave the contract that you gave Kirk Cousins. Okay, you're going to draft Michael. Drafting the Michael Penix, I think, is in isolation fine, right? You had an evaluation on this guy that says he's a franchise quarterback. A franchise quarterback is worth the 8th overall pick. And in particular, in this draft where quarterbacks were flying off the board in the first 10 picks, there's no way you could try and play the game and come back and get him at the bottom of the first or the top of the second round. Like, there's no way you could know that other people didn't like him that much as well. So if you thought Michael Penix Jr. is that guy, you have to take him at 8. No problem with that whatsoever. The variable here is, what about Kirk Cousins, right? Should you have signed a quarterback at 35 years old, coming off an Achilles injury, that apparently you are prepared to bench after 14 games? To that contract, like that essentially, now knowing that 14 games is the variable there, right? This is how long they were prepared to give Kirk Cousins if it wasn't stellar play. What do you make of the process of signing him in the first place? Because if that is where we are, that he had a 14 game rope essentially to play with, I feel like that was an error.
I think essentially it was a big hedge, right? It's like Cousins was if they didn't get Kirk Cousins, and then you go into the draft with all of that uncertainty coming off of 2 years, like they said, yeah, Desmond Ritter's our guy. And it was obviously a mistake. And I do feel like Arthur Blank was involved in this, saying never again. The transition from Matt Ryan to the next quarterback was awful. He even talked about that. We don't want to deal with that again. So it's just an expensive hedge to say we're going to get the top free agent guy and we're going to draft a guy in the first round. And at the end of the day, you let things play out. And I respect them for not necessarily letting the sunk cost of Kirk Cousins influence decisions. And now, again, hindsight, we got it. I understand. Veteran, Achilles, you're willing to move on this quickly. You did burn a lot of cash on that, but I think it's a lot better process than most people are letting on, or at least let on at draft time.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a tendency to rewrite history a little bit. So what it does, and I think this is less relevant to the Falcons than the Raiders, but for example, the worst thing that can happen is the Raiders, who put all their chips in the draft basket for a couple of years and didn't come up with the guy, right? All the quarterbacks were gone by the time they showed up to pick. Now, this time, the Falcons are picking 8 overall, but there's 5 or 6 quarterbacks potentially in this draft. Now, maybe they didn't like a few of these guys, and if Bo Nix or Drake May had slid to their spot, they didn't like that guy enough to draft him. But theoretically, there were like 6 quarterbacks available this year and 8 picks. So the chances are one of them is going to be there. You're not going to be like the Raiders, where the music stops and you didn't get any quarterback, and you're like, crap, now what do we do? So on the one hand, I think you can say, look, it's a guarantee that they have somebody, as opposed to gambling that draft time they get the guy and then suddenly they don't get their guy somehow and they're sitting there with no quarterback at all. And then, everyone says, well, you could have just signed Sam Darnold, right? He had like a 1-year, $10 million deal. Look at him now. He's making an MVP case for the Vikings.
Should have just done that. Yeah.
Right. But, okay, number one, there's a timing thing involved. But number two, it's not like everyone was saying Sam Darnold's going to be great this time a year ago, right? Sam Darnold was very, very damaged goods, and only because he landed in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all this environment around him, where people going, well, okay, maybe Kevin O'Connell could fix Sam Darnold. And even then, nobody was expecting the kind of season we're getting now. So it's easy to say, well, they should have just signed Sam Darnold for $10 million like the Vikings did. But I don't know that there's a guarantee that would have worked out and been any better than the Kirk Cousins project, albeit a significantly cheaper risk that they could have gotten away from earlier.
Yeah, let's try not to analyze this with the hindsight bias. I completely agree here, Sam. We got to put a bow on the Penix thing. Can't wait to see what he looks like. We'll be previewing every game, of course, tomorrow. You talked about Minnesota. I want to talk about them in a minute, but just to remind people, we're thrilled to be sponsored by our friends over at Circa Resort and Casino, one of the premier destinations for sports fans in Vegas. We'll be there for the finale of the regular season. So week 18, broadcasting from Circa, checking out Stadium Swim. We're going to be checking out Legacy Club, some of the best views at the fabulous of the Strip in Vegas. So we're going to be there Friday through Sunday, a little meet and greet on Friday night over at Circa, and then recording our Week 18 review show from there on Sunday afternoon. So encourage all of our great viewers and listeners to come join us. So what you got to do is go to the link in the YouTube description. It's circalasvegas.com/huddle-up at Overhang. They have a drop down. You pick the Los Angeles weekends because the Chargers are in town. So it's the Los Angeles weekend, and sign up and come join us over at Circa. So that's the last weekend of the season, Week 18. January 3rd is that Friday. Meet up that night over at Circa. Then we're sitting there watching the games all day, 2 games Saturday, and then all day on Sunday at Circa.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Circa, an incredible place generally, but I'm so excited to be catching an NFL weekend from that entire environment. And yeah, we get our listeners to come and say hi, hang out with us as well. So if you guys have the capacity to get to Circa Las Vegas that weekend, come and join us. It'll be awesome.
All right, so let's touch on the other Monday Night Football game before we bring Ross Tucker in here. Minnesota Vikings 30, Bears 12. Vikings move to 12-2 here, and keeping pace with the Detroit Lions in the division, with the Eagles now for the number 1 overall seed. It's all a possibility now for the Vikings. Another impressive win. Bears were aggressive early on, got stopped on some 4th downs, never really had a chance after that. And Minnesota just showed, hey, they're a much better team right now.
Well, this was like the first matchup, except the Bears didn't execute the comeback, right? They've been doing this for weeks now, where they get their ass kicked in the first half, and then suddenly in the particularly late in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, they create these comebacks, make it a tight game, botch, an end of game time scenario, or miss a kick or whatever, get it to overtime. And this time that just didn't happen. And so the Vikings were just a significantly better team for the majority of this game. And okay, they had some execution problems themselves on offense. Justin Jefferson drops a touchdown. That's one of the first and only times you're going to see that happen. But yeah, fairly routine win by the numbers, right?
It was. And I just want to highlight, I had forgotten about this tweet that I had last year. We've been talking about the Vikings and all their playmakers. Wasn't the best Sam Darnold game, but once again, you have Justin Jefferson with his 7 catches and Addison with 7 catches and TJ Hawkinson with 5. What are you smirking at?
I know where you're going with this. It's good.
Jordan Addison is the greatest receiver in NFL history, Sam.
Yeah.
Let's just go back through his last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett goes from middling college quarterback to one of the best in college history. I mean, in the nation that year, in a first-round pick in 2021. In 2022, he transfers to USC. Caleb Williams wins the Heisman. Hasn't done anything since then. 2023, people forget. Kirk Cousins gets hurt. Vikings have a revolving door of quarterbacks. Justin Jefferson's hurt for a period of time. Doesn't matter. Addison takes over. And now Jordan Addison, one of the catalysts for Sam Darnold's breakout and MVP candidacy. Unbelievable run here for Jordan Addison. Are we underrating the greatest receiver in NFL history?
I mean, look, the without splits for Jordan Addison over the last 4 years with his quarterback speak for themselves. Those data points are unimpeachable. They're inarguable. You can only conclude that Jordan Addison is the single most powerful force for maximizing quarterback play in football. Forget coaching, forget offensive line, protection, scheme. None of it matters. Just sign Jordan Addison.
And wait till next year. J.J. McCarthy, tearing it up, and it's all Jordan Addison. It's all him. So we do have to get to Ross here. I think within the next minute or two here. Is that right? What else? Anything else on this game to touch on?
No, other than Chicago's defense has been leaking over the last few weeks. It's not been as good as it was last year, and then into this year, they struggled again to contain the Vikings. But, I mean, this was like the first game, except the Bears just weren't able to execute any kind of comeback.
Yeah, so Bears fall to 4-10. As I said, Vikings 12-2, and they have the collision course with the Lions in Week 18, and there's a path now for Minnesota with the Lions losing. There's a path to all of it, right? The NFC North, the number one overall seed. It's all in play now for Minnesota, as they continue just an outstanding season.
I mean, the Vikings, they've got tough games down the stretch, but this is in terms of how important that number one seed is generally, the Vikings could be taking a week off and hosting the playoffs effectively with that one seed, or they can be going on the road to a really tough NFC opponent somewhere ugly like Seattle or, something like that, based off dropping from the one seed down to the fifth seed. So huge, everything on the line for Minnesota in these last few games.
All right, man. That was, very impressive what they've done and what they've continued to do. And wasn't the best Monday Night Football doubleheader, but, broke up the Sunday a little bit for us.
Yeah. So Ross coming on in a second, which means just enough time for me to be able to tell you about our friends at Harry's. That's right. I'm telling you this time, not Steve, me, because obviously I know all about shaving as opposed to Steve. The holiday special is over at Harry's, but Harry's still has great deals for you to try and get their products. Which set did you receive and what products were in it? How about the weight? What on earth is all this? This ad read has gone spectacularly wrong already.
You tell them about what you got, Sam.
I got a
package
shaving set from Harry's that involves a spectacular razor and, more importantly, the shave gel, which means I can actually use it on my face, or more importantly, neck now, because I'm growing the beard back. But I can use the razor on my neck, get it perfect shave. The razor is spectacular. It comes in its own little case. It's got its own little drip-proof kind of cover for the razor so you don't leave it just sitting out on the counter making a giant mess. It's spectacular stuff. German-engineered blades made in their factory that stay sharp longer. Customizable delivery options for scheduled refills as low as $2, half what you pay for other big brands. You get a 5-blade razor, 5 blades, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 over at harrys.com/check the mic. That's harrys.com/check the mic. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 over at harrys.com/check the mic. Again, harrys.com/check the mic for a $3 trial set. That was flawless, really was.
You nailed it.
Nailed it, absolutely nailed it.
I'm just, I'll be voice of God for a little bit in the background talking to you until Ross gets here.
Perfect, yeah.
I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give you tips on the ad read. But yeah, Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker podcast.
Host of the Ross Tucker football podcast. Ross is, we've talked about this before, right? He's one of our kind of North Star guidelines of how to be a pro, because there's nobody in the world, and this is clearly, it's not sunk in enough based off that previous ad read, but nobody in the world is able to sell stuff like Ross Tucker, including himself. It's masterful. He is
he's a friend and a colleague, and looking forward to breaking down some NFL with Ross.
Yeah, any minute now.
You can monologue it for a little bit, Sam.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, what do we talk about? What do you want to hit? What do you want to talk about as the voice of God? What does the football God want to comment on?
Did you make a prediction in the NFC and who's gonna come out of there?
Okay, so let's look at the 3 contenders for that number 1 seed and their upcoming schedule. You've got Detroit, who now is even more of a mash unit on defense than they have been. They're on the road to Chicago, who are collapsing. They're on the road to the 49ers, and then they have that Week 18 game at home in the Dome against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings themselves they're on the road against Seattle. Then they're at home against Green Bay, who are one of the hottest teams in the NFL all of a sudden. And then they're on the road to that Detroit Lions game. So that's a really tough run for them. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are on the road against the Washington Commanders. Tough game at home against Dallas. That could go any way based off the Cowboys in recent weeks. And then week 18 with what looks like a gimme as a nice game at home against the New York Giants. So all three of those teams are live.
Eagles have probably the best path, though, right? We would say.
Because at least two of those games they'll be fairly heavy favorites in, you would think.
Yeah. So I'd say, the Eagles might have the best path. The other interesting dynamic to me with that is it's two dome teams in Detroit and Minnesota versus the outdoor Eagles. It does change the playoff dynamic with the outdoor game.
Yeah, definitely. There we go. Ross in the building.
What's up, boys? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm on with two of my favorites. Let me just say this, okay? Before we even get started, I want to make sure your listeners and viewers know this. Legitimately, two of my favorite guys in the industry, two of the guys I respect the most, A, because I know they do the work, and B, the paths they took to get this level of football intelligence. I mean, the name of the show shouldn't be Check the Mic. It should be The Irishman and the Pitcher. I mean, it's unbelievable that The Irishman and the Pitcher have one of the most popular NFL football podcasts going. But it's true. It's impressive. You guys know I've talked to you both individually many times over the years. Very happy for both of you. I'm excited to finally be on. Every time you had another guest on, instead of me, I was like, wow, okay, wow, okay.
Every time you took it as a personal slight. Where were you when we were trying to come up with names for the show? You would have been perfect. We spent weeks trying to figure out what to name this thing, and you had it right there.
Irishman in the Pitcher is amazing because then you get all the overlap of people that are just want to drink Guinness or like talk about like beer. Irishman and they'll think it's like a pitcher of beer. It's incredible.
Yeah, seriously. We needed your help back in August when we were going through all this. And we just told our listeners, you're one of the best promo guys in the business, we'll say, Ross. And look at you cutting a promo for us right off the top here. We appreciate it. That's great.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me.
You were at Patriots Cardinals. By the way, let me talk you up for a minute here, Ross, because you're not on the NFL every single week for CBS, but I hear you on the radio, college games, NFL games for CBS. I think you do a great job. And I think the color guy, it's a tough job, man. It's tough to be good at that job. A lot of people don't like the people that they listen to. They like to complain about the people they listen to. Even the best in the business, the top guys. I think you do a great job breaking down the action, though. And I enjoyed listening to you during Cardinals, Patriots, and the other games you've done throughout the year.
Well, man, that means a lot. You know what's really crazy about Cardinals Patriots is usually after the game, depending on who you are, you get a lot of negativity, some positivity. But if you look, okay, the positive comments are 90% of the time from the team that won the game.
Yeah.
And the negative comments are 90% of the time from the team that lost the game, right? Because they're not happy. You didn't call the one penalty that they wish you would have called and you're biased and all those things. I got like 5 to 10 tweets from Patriots fans that all were some version of, we suck, but you made that tolerable. The only thing that was enjoyable about that god-awful performance was you. Like, I was like, wow, okay. Thank you, Patriots fans. I'll take it. And I'm glad they like it because I got another Patriots game coming up this weekend and next weekend, boys. Double headers. So Thursday night, I've got Chargers Broncos in the radio booth for Westwood 1. Then I'll take the red eye to Indy for Titans Colts Sunday for CBS. And then next week, I'm actually going to drive out to Pittsburgh, do Chiefs Steelers on the radio, then head up to Boston and do Chargers Patriots, making my NFL Network and standalone game debut on television Saturday at 1. Justin Herbert against Drake May, the Hunter Henry connection there.
Man, you're like everyone's focusing on all the work these players have to do, right? With 3 games in 11 days, you should think about Ross's schedule. Nobody's talking about that, and you're out here grinding even harder than the players.
Well, especially when you add in all the other things I do, like you guys know, with the Ross Tucker podcast and everything. But huge fan of you guys, excited to chat about whatever you want to talk about. And it is, by the way, if you've ever done it, it is harder to be a color commentator than you think it is when you're sitting on the couch because it happens a lot faster. The same thing as like being a ref. Like we all just sit here and be like, oh, the ref sucks, ref sucks. I would love to see you go out there and see how fast it's really moving. And oh, by the way, you're there. You're trying not to get run over. And those are the best guys we have. I hardly ever blame refs. If anything, I blame the process and I blame the lack of technology to help those guys because it does happen super fast when you're out there.
Definitely.
Since you have a lot of Patriots, a couple things we want to touch on. We got to get your Bill Belichick take in a minute. I want to get just your Drake May impressions to this point because I think we're going to be doing an autopsy on teams that are dead. New England's dead. We're going to do the autopsy a little bit later on the show. What was the cause of death? What went wrong? But to this point, I've been pretty impressed with what Drake May's brought to the table. What have you seen from him?
Very impressed. And it's interesting because there was a healthy amount of skepticism, I feel like, when he came out. I can't remember, what you guys thought, but I just didn't remember this, okay? You guys know I'm never going to be that guy that pretends I'm the quarterback guru and like talks about his footwork or whatever. But I had a lot of those people come on my show, over the course of the pre-draft process. Interestingly, almost all of them, I'm trying to think, Chase Daniel, Sean King, Phil Simms, Greg Cosell, Orlovsky, Riddick, I think almost all of them either said they liked Jaden Daniel more than Caleb Williams. They either flat out said that or they intimated as much, which I find very interesting seeing how things have played out. They also all kind of said the same thing about Drake May, which is that a lot of physical tools that you really liked, but raw, inconsistent, all these things, which I thought was weird. How are you raw if you started every game for 2 years in North Carolina? Like that's not a good sign. He has been awesome. I mean, and I'll say this when I do the next NFL Network game, they pretty inarguably have the worst offensive line and the worst receiving core in the NFL. So think about that. Think about the situation you're putting a rookie quarterback in, and yet we all feel like he's really good and he's playing really well. So I feel a lot better about the Patriots than I do about a bunch of other teams because they at least can feel extremely confident that they have their franchise guy. You guys can see the throws. Everybody can see the stats or when he runs. For me, it's the little things. He runs when he's supposed to, doesn't when he's not. He throws the ball away when it's the right play. He just consistently makes the right play, whether it's running for 7 yards, throwing it away. There's at no point when you watch him do you think he's a rookie. Like you don't think that. Even the touchdown flick he had, I think it was the Demario Douglas. Yeah. It was like a no-look shovel pass, like Farvian, if you will. I love the guy. I think they hit a home run with him. And on the other side, Gonzalez is outrageously good. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch it yet, watch him against Marvin Harrison Jr. It was like he was stuck to him like glue. I don't know how much that says about Gonzalez, how much that says about Marvin Harrison Jr., but it was super impressive.
Yeah, like Drake May looks spectacular. And on the one hand, you feel great because it looks like you've hit an absolute home run at quarterback, obviously the most important position. On the other hand, as you said, the situation around him is kind of terrible. I mean, Steve said on the show the other day, Drake May's great. Once you give him 5 new offensive linemen and a whole new receiving core, now you're really in business. So how bad is it around him, and how quickly do you think you can turn that around?
It's really bad. The biggest concern, first of all, I mean, they have guys starting on the offensive line. Before I was prepping for the Cardinals game, I never heard of their right tackle or center. DeMontre Jacobs and Ben Brown. Like, that never happens. Never happens. The bigger concern is that the guys that are still tasked with turning it around, they're the ones that did this draft class, which has been a huge disappointment. They're also the ones that decided to re-sign Peppers and Duggar and Godshaw and Uche and Owenu and Hunter Henry and Stevenson. I mean, if you ask the rest of the NFL how many of those guys they would want with the current contracts, it's probably just Hunter Henry. I mean, the other guys have all been disappointing for the money they gave them based on them thinking that those were core guys. So I think you can turn it around pretty quick with the most salary cap space if you're picking the right middle-class guys, upper middle-class guys. But I think you'd be right if you're a Patriots fan to have some skepticism about the current guys that are tasked with doing that.
And of course, one of the biggest stories, Ross, you played for Bill Belichick, right? You played for him. Nobody knows Bill Belichick better than you, except the guys that played for him longer. What were your thoughts? Bill Belichick going to UNC. How's that going to work out? How surprised were you that he took that job?
Well, by the way, everybody's asked me to comment on this, so of course I do. I'll say whatever I think. Everybody replies, "You only played in one game for him. You only played in one game for him."
Doesn't matter.
Two things on that. First of all, if you're going to go to Pro Football Reference, make sure you check out the playoffs too, because I played in that playoff game against the Broncos. Brady was undefeated in the playoffs until they put me in. Okay, that was the Patriots' first loss. My only playoff game of my career was Brady's first playoff loss when Ben Watson chased down Champ Bailey from behind. Still the sickest thing I've ever seen by a specimen on a football field. 100-yard sprint from my guy Ben Watson. But by the way, I didn't play that many games. I was there for parts of 2 seasons. I know what the guy's personality is like, okay? Clearly, the best schematic head coach I was ever around. Unbelievable, guys, how he could say the key to this game is Jimmy Smith on crossing routes on third down, when we're playing the Jags in the wild card round. By the time the game came around, the only thing I knew for sure is that Jimmy Smith's ass was not catching a crossing route on third down. That's all we talked about all week. And so he's the best I've ever seen at those things. That said, you guys know I follow college football very closely. The things that are probably most important for the head coach or the CEO, if you will, being able to help convince 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 18 sometimes, and their families to come to your university and want to play for you, and being able to convince millionaires to give money to you so that you can spend money on the players. I've talked to look, I just did a Patriots game, right? And I've also talked to other guys. I've seen Edelman's comments and Brady's comments. Nobody can really picture him doing either one of those things. So that will be fascinating to see him. I mean, I think he can do it. He just doesn't really want to, right? And when he's in the pros, he's 100% negative reinforcement. So the first thing you do at 8 a.m. every morning is watch the 5 worst plays from the day before, and he makes fun of you or rips you or whatever. So one of two things is going to happen. I'm either fascinated to see how the college kids react to that, or he's going to change. Belichick's going to change. I still believe he'd rather be in the NFL. I still wouldn't be shocked if he never coached a game for North Carolina. Or I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he only coached there for 1 season.
Wow. So, yeah, we've heard some of those rumblings about, how's the college game work, the NIL deals, everything you mentioned. We'll see how that works with Bill. And then holiday season, Ross, I know you've got something great to offer people, especially during the holiday season. My front page story. Tell everybody about it.
You guys know I always got something for you. My buddy started this business. It's by far the best gift I've ever seen. You guys will appreciate this with your writing background. You talk to a writer for 10 minutes on the phone, tell them how great your wife is or your mom. This is actually my wife's grandmother. They write the most unbelievable story about them. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper framed. My wife's grandmother, before she passed, had this hanging up in her house, in her senior care facility, community, I think is the word they want you to say, and read it like every day. Just being able to say to somebody, I had a story written about you. like Steve, you could do this for Sam. You could have a story written
Really
about
should.
how wonderful of a partner Sam is for you. It's myfrontpagestory.com. Myfrontpagestory.com. Coolest gift I've seen because it's all these quotes and pictures from you and your family telling your mom or wife how great they are. They cry almost every time. It's like a 90% cry rate. Use that for your PFF next gen stats. 90% cry rate when you get them a story from myfrontpagestory.com.
I love it.
Awesome.
So can I get this in time for Christmas? I need a Christmas gift for Sam here in the next few days.
That's what I'm saying.
Number one, yes, you can. Number two, this is almost better. So when you get to like 3 or 4 days, they probably can't ship it to you in time. I've decided this is better. You go to myfrontpagestory.com, you order the story, right? Then you print out the email confirmation like you always get. You give it to them in an envelope, okay? They open up the envelope and they're like, my front page story, what is this? And you say, I'm having a story professionally written all about you. I commissioned it earlier this week and they're writing it right now. Can you imagine the anticipation? Like if you're doing it for your mom or your wife, nobody's ever written a story about them ever. The anticipation of waiting and wondering what this thing even says, it's almost better than giving it to them on Christmas. It's almost like you get 2 gifts in one because you give it to them on Christmas and then they're waiting every day for this thing to arrive in the mail so they can rip it open and see what the heck somebody wrote about them. I think that might almost be better. Myfrontpagestory.com, myfrontpagestory.com. Trust me.
Everybody go check that out. I mean, no better endorsement than from Ross, the host of the Ross Tucker podcast. Tell everybody where they could hear you, in addition to all the NFL games you're going to be calling the next few weeks here.
Yeah, no, the easiest, just check me out on social media, at Ross Tucker NFL. Whatever platform you're on, I'm on. TikTok, Instagram, whatever. The YouTube's doing well, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I got a bunch of podcasts, probably too many. Ross Tucker Football Podcast is daily. Then I got a betting one, which does very well, Even Money, Fantasy Feast, if you're still in the fantasy football, and the College Draft Podcast, where we talk about prospects and betting these games against the spread. Very much looking forward to the college football playoff the next few weeks.
Thanks so much, Ross. It's been awesome.
Always great talking with you guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ross.
All right, there goes Ross, which means just enough time for me to tell you all about our friends over at GameTime. GameTime Picks is incredible. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on incredible seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Everyone loves going to live sporting events as well as comedy, music, whatever. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that you need, all in pricing. Toggling this feature shows up the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, so you can see exactly how much it's going to cost. You don't get more money every time you click a button. The seat views give you panoramic views from your seat from the app, so you know exactly what you're looking at before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code CheckTheMic for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CheckTheMic, CheckThemic, for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. I feel like that
Ross
one went better than Harry's read.
You did a great job with that. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Perhaps motivated by the greatest promo man we've ever been around.
Greatest promo man, greatest businessman. I mean, the man's doing everything. He's a color commentator. He's an entrepreneur. He's got 17 different podcasts. He's got a YouTube channel. He's everywhere.
I didn't realize he had that, because I know he's doing the Thursday night NFL games and everything. And that's even tougher, man. Like, you have to describe all the action because people can't see it. So doing radio is difficult. He is, and I wasn't just talking him up. Like, I love listening to him. He's really good. So appreciate having Ross on the show. We were talking a lot of Patriots there. It's autopsy time on the New England Patriots, Sam. We've been doing this for teams that are dead, teams that are done. Cause of death, for the 3-11 New England Patriots. Do you have an answer on cause of death here for New England?
I mean, I guess the cause of death is the lack of talent, particularly on offense. I mean, the fact that on paper they have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL and one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL, and on paper has translated into the games, so that even with a quarterback playing really well as a rookie, albeit with some fairly significant mistakes in there as well, which is a factor, but even with Drake May looking really good, they still look like garbage on offense because there's just no talent around him.
Yeah, I mean, cause of death for me would be they ran it back with the 4-win team that got everybody run out of town. And this isn't a new opinion. I mean, I've said that on this show probably 5 times in the last year when we were talking about the preseason preview on New England. Like, what should expectations be? Well, they ran it back with the same team that had 4 wins last year, ran Bill Belichick out of town, ran Mac Jones out of town, and said we can't have those guys here anymore. But then they re-signed a big chunk of the defense.
Yeah, they
re-signed a whole bunch of guys, and the only difference was they drafted a quarterback. They went bridge quarterback Jacoby Brissett for a little bit. They drafted Drake May. And I agree with a lot of what Ross said about Drake May. We've said it a lot on the show here. Very impressive. I'm impressed that he's doing it with this situation. This is the type of situation where if an established NFL quarterback had to deal with this receiving core and this offensive line, you would say this team failed, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, whoever would name star quarterback that was put into this situation, you would say team fails them. There's no way to have success here. I think in New England's case, they just hit rock bottom as a roster. Yeah, they ran it back with the same team as last year, so the expectation shouldn't have been higher. But it's a multi-year rebuild. I think it was always going to be a multi-year rebuild. So I don't necessarily blame them for being in for Elliott Wolf being in this spot at the moment necessarily, or Gerard Mayo. This is just the spot that they're in. They got the quarterback. Now they got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do going forward to improve really both sides of the ball, but especially on offense.
Yeah, there really is. Like that. On the one hand, it's unfortunate because they drafted, a couple of receivers, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, and you're like, well, maybe one or both those guys can hit, and you've got a young receiver in addition to these guys. Like, it's the kind of thing where one of those hitting completely transforms a receiving core theoretically, but Polk has struggled badly, year one, particularly with drops, and it's like, so they're getting nothing out of Baker really. So now you're just back to what's still just a terrible receiving core. There's no one to work with. And then the entire offensive line, they didn't have enough clear resources thrown at it. And where they did throw resources, it hasn't paid dividends yet. So it's just a total and complete lack of talent around Drake May. Basically, it's Hunter Henry, the end.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, so the other thing that's happening, and, I'm in New England right now, and a lot of the rumblings around town, it's like, is Gerard Mayo coaching for his job and this and that? And I'm not saying he should be absolved of any criticism, but I'll repeat, this team won 4 games last year with Bill Belichick as the head coach. They weren't much better the previous years, to be honest. And all they changed was brought in a first-time head coach, reshuffled the entire coaching staff, and switched quarterbacks. There's really not a whole lot of change. And you could argue maybe the talent's even worse than last year because of what Ross said. At points, 3/5 of this offensive line had fewer than 100 total. They had Ross Tucker-like, no offense, experience at the NFL level, fewer than 100 snaps coming in. So I don't know what the expectations should have been for Gerard Mayo, as a first-time head coach. And I don't know if he needs to come back or if you have an opportunity to bring in a Ben Johnson, if he would come in and do it, or a Mike Vrabel. The rumors are floating that Mike Vrabel would come in and try to fix this thing. But, man, I don't know what expectations should have been. You're in a tough AFC East with the worst talent in the division, and I think they hit expectations this year.
Yeah. The good news for them, though, is that they're really well positioned in the offseason to rebuild this thing, right? And as Ross said, you look like you've nailed the quarterback situation. So the thing that everyone's usually trying to do once they hit the reboot button is, oh man, now we've got to find a quarterback. Now we've got to go through that process. It's a gamble. We might miss. We might have to do it again. they look like they've nailed their quarterback. They might be headed for, one of the top picks in the draft, and they don't need a quarterback, whereas everyone else at the top of the draft is going to be in that market. So the New England Patriots might have the first available pick of the non-quarterbacks effectively in this draft, or potentially be able to trade out of their pick to a team that does need a quarterback. So either they're drafting the best offensive lineman in the draft, the best, receiver in the draft. Maybe they're the destination for Travis Hunter. Either they're doing that, or they're trading out of their pick to a team that needs the quarterback and picking up a giant haul. Either way, they're theoretically kickstarting this rebuild.
Yeah, so I think we'll do the whole fixing every team in 5 minutes during the offseason. We'll spend more time on this, but they at least need to take some shots in free agency when it comes to the offensive line. And it doesn't have to be big name players, but you have to get the $10 to $15 million guards, and you have to find a way. Shaq Mason, former Patriot a couple of years ago, was traded for a 6th round pick. I mean, they probably need to find 4 starters on the offensive line. And to me, that's a combination of mid-tier free agents, maybe you flip a pick for a starter, maybe you draft a Will Campbell or whoever at Kelvin Banks at tackle. The other debate we're going to have quite a bit was the Travis Hunter thing. Is Travis Hunter's trade value going to be the equivalent of a quarterback in this draft? And
right.
If you have a chance to get Hunter at 3 or 2, do you take him or trade down? And you hear me say trade down as a solution to all these teams. That it really might need to happen with New England, because I don't know how they solve this in an offseason. I don't know how you improve at 3 receiver spots and 4 offensive line spots in an offseason. And again, we're not even talking about the inconsistent pass rush on defense, the need for just more consistent players in the front 7, the whole thing on the defensive side of the ball.
I think when you need this many players, this many upgrades at one time, what you really want is sure things. You really want guarantees effectively, even if you're acquiring fewer of them than you need. I think getting certainties is really important. The Patriots have the most cap space in the NFL as well, but as we're going to be saying repeatedly a million times, it looks like an awful free agent group to have money to spend, right? Like they're not, even if you wanted to go nuts and create the new spending spree, you're looking at the landscape and like, I don't know where I'm putting the money. There's just not that many guys I would want to pay in this free agent group. But I wonder if that puts them in the market of potential trades where teams are like, we're not paying this guy, but we might trade him away to a team that is willing to pay him. So, the Bengals have been doing this dance with T. Higgins for a while. Would they tag and trade T. Higgins and the Patriots then give him the long-term contract that he wants? Are there players like that where New England, and maybe this could happen in combination with trading down in the draft, right? Where you trade out of one of the top picks in the draft and then start using some of those picks instead of using them to just draft more players. Maybe you start using some of those 2nd and 3rd round picks to acquire players like T. Higgins, actually trade for established NFL veterans that you're willing to pay money to.
Yeah, I think they should absolutely be in the Higgins market. Again, we've seen almost every young quarterback that's had success over the last few years has been paired with at least a top guy. A.J. Brown going to Philly and Tyreek Hill going to Miami, and Mahomes having his Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. We've seen all of that. Allen got Stephon Diggs. To get the most out of May, I think you have to find that guy. So I think Higgins is absolutely in play. And I'm with you. I think that you get this allotment of draft picks. And when I say trade down, it's not just to take 12 players. It is to have that trade flexibility as well. So, yeah, I think it's got to be a creative offseason. I think for New England, offense heavy, kind of trust that the defense will improve again in year 2, second year in the system with a lot of guys coming back, and maybe trust some of the continuity there, but you got to go heavy offense. But again, just to repeat, I think cause of death was they were pretty much dead and buried when they came into the season. They didn't have much of a chance unless Gerard Mayo was just a superstar and Drake May was a superstar who could overcome everything around him. And to this point, I think I think Drake May should be a disaster out there given this situation, and he hasn't been. And I think that's the biggest win this season for New England.
So cause of death for the New England Patriots is latent death. You know,
Bill Belichick.
This was already
Bill
a dead
Belichick.
team. It had just yet to manifest itself in obvious rigor mortis-like symptoms. Now
Bill Belichick killed him.
Yeah, now the death
it.
is apparent, and we're just seeing it. Yeah, months later. Just to kind of repeat or state for the first time, either repeat or state for the first time, the New England Patriots currently occupy the number 3 overall pick based off tiebreakers, but there are, 5 teams sitting there at 3 wins. They are a win or a loss back from the Vegas Raiders and the New York Giants, who each have only 2 wins. The Raiders run in Jacksonville at New Orleans, and then the Chargers, and the Giants run in where they finish with the Eagles game. They've got the Colts, and they're on the road to the Falcons as their next game. So they're in really good position right now with the 3rd overall pick. Potentially, the 2 or the 1 pick is there, but they're going to have a really good draft pick to try and parlay into, more picks or a really good player.
Yeah, New England has Buffalo twice and the Chargers. We'll see if Buffalo's playing for anything in Week 18, but,
right.
Not a whole lot of wins necessarily on the schedule. You're right. So, they're probably picking top 3, somewhere in there, and they don't need a quarterback. They'll be holding a lot of cards potentially for a team that wants to come up, because there's the Titans, the Jets. There's a lot of teams picking like 7 to 12 who are going to need a QB. And unlike last year where 6 went, this year could be only 2 or 3, especially as more guys like Drew Aller just announced he's going back to Penn State. Garrett Nussmeier going back to LSU. I don't even know if those guys warranted top 10 picks, but anybody that's even been in that conversation, a lot of those guys are going back to school or they have question marks. So it could be a 2 QB race that, for teams like the Giants, the Raiders, the Titans, the Jets that are looking for a QB. And so the Patriots are in strong position there. And that's where, again, I think they have to leverage it. At the end of the day, do they need a left tackle and a right tackle? Yes. I would say let's not make 1 pick. Let's try to spin that into way more if possible.
And maybe Travis Hunter is part of the answer there, right? You get 2 players for the price of 1.
2 players.
You draft Travis Hunter, you upgrade at wide receiver and cornerback. It's perfect. You get 2 upgrades with only 1 pick. It's just printing money at that stage.
We're really going to have those conversations a lot this offseason. Do you pick Travis Hunter or do you trade back 8 spots, get Teterow and McMillan and another corner later? Like, you're going to have those legit discussions because Hunter's probably not a 2-way player full-time at the NFL level.
Right.
I'm not, he's going to like clip all those and, you said I couldn't do it, but I don't know if the NFL is going to give him that opportunity, so.
Yeah. I think right now the prevailing wisdom is he will be drafted as one side of the ball and then maybe have a little, a package of plays or a situational role on the other side of the ball. I really don't think anybody is out there thinking that they can replicate what he's just done in college, even though what he's just done in college earned him the Heisman Trophy. He's just done it to an exceptionally high level on both sides of the ball throughout an entire college season. I still don't think anyone's looking at that in the NFL and going, that's a viable option going forward.
And I just want to call out that terrible corner of the internet that is claiming that Travis Hunter only won the Heisman because of snap count. That is absurd. That is a stupid take. Snap counts are a fun stat because it's painting a picture of what he's brought to the table that no one else in college football history has done, or at least recent college football history. Maybe one time back in the 40s when Tungsten Arm was doing it, but it's incredible what Travis Hunter did. And he's he is the unique non-quarterback prospect to come out in a long, long time. And we'll have plenty to say about him.
It's just the only the snap count thing is just the only way of articulating that he's playing a full-time role on both sides of the ball. Like it's just a reality of like, this is how we quantify that, right? Look at the number of snaps he's playing relative to everybody else, and then further think what that means, right? Lack of taking a breather on the sideline, number of, like, he has to learn 2 different playbooks effectively. He's got to attend meetings at 2 different positions. Like, it's just a way of shorthanding all of that. Like, it's singularly unique and special for a guy to be a legitimate 2-way player in any form of modern time. I don't know how long ago you need to go back. Like, other guys have had packages on the other side of the ball, Chris Gamble or Charles Woodson or whoever. But to find a legitimate every down starter on both sides of the ball. I don't know how far back you have to go, but it's a long ass time, even independent of the fact that he did both of them extremely well, right? If he'd been an average starter on both sides of the ball, I think there would have been an argument that he's the Heisman Trophy winner. But he wasn't. He was really good on both sides of the ball. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer, even with the season that Ashton Genty had, which is legitimately one of the best running back seasons ever.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy for Hunter. I'm glad he won. Sad for Genty. Thought he deserved to win as well in any other year.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they were 1-2 because they were outstanding this year. From a New England perspective, anything else to touch on here? I think they're one of the teams I think we'll talk about a lot this offseason because it's one of those, you have the quarterback. What do you do with all your other resources to improve what the quarterback, his situation? And so there'll be a fun discussion this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man, we got our Shouty Shows for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. As always, the future award-winning Shouty Show segment. Let's hear what we got.
Do people black out when they're about to score? It's the only thing I can think of. Is it like having an orgasm where you just kind of lose perspective and you're like, you just like lose the ball? What other explanation could there? What other explanation could there be?
Right.
Do you literally like black out? Because the other thing that always drives us crazy is when the guy reaches to try to score near the goal line and the ball gets batted out or he fumbles it, through the end zone. That's more understandable because it's like, all right, the guy's doing everything he can to try to score. This is just, it's a full-fledged blackout.
Bill, we had our own Shouty Show moments the other day about this, dropping the ball at the goal line.
I mean, I think he's right. I think that's kind of what's happening. I mean, I'm not sure I would phrase it in those terms, but that's basically what's happening, right? Is that they lose the act of celebrating, I am scoring here, leads them to completely dump other parts of their brain that would normally be saying, make sure I focus on holding the ball before I cross the goal line.
Can we just, guys, with the captions, please? This is getting... See, the reason why Bill Simmons is where he is, Sam, is because, as you said, you wouldn't phrase it the way he did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not criticizing him for it. That's why the man has a podcast empire.
Yeah.
And
that's what's holding us back.
Whatever
Sam.
You term check the mic right now, it's not an empire yet. Maybe we will
Not
be
yet.
one day, but currently it's not an empire. So, yeah, the man knows what he's talking about.
Maybe you should learn from Bill if you could, you're a pretty creative guy, good writer, good analogy guy. Maybe if you were a little more creative in your delivery, we'd go to the moon. We'd take off here.
Maybe.
You weren't willing to go there, though. Bill was, which is why he's a star. That's why Austin Gale ran away from us to go work with Bill years ago. Right? It's Bill Simmons. Impressive take by Bill. He achieved a similar conclusion as we did with a better descriptor. Next.
Josh Allen's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. I'll die on that hill. Don't confuse trophies with talent. I've never seen a quarterback this good. Size, arm, mobility, A++++. It's a little LeBron in his prime. It's a little Ohtani. It's a little Tiger, where you can put the best athletes in the world out there, and he's a notch above that. Buffalo has allowed 86 points in the last 2 weeks, and my take is, yeah, so what? They'll get to the Super Bowl. But I'm watching Mahomes, who's obviously so gifted, limping around. They can't protect him. And I'm saying, God, he is so vulnerable, this team. Josh Allen has not taken a sack in a month. We're all lucky we were born in a time you can watch Josh Allen. Because as good as Mahomes is, he's not this. And I love him. And as good as Brady was, he's not Mahomes. That's the best I've ever seen.
You want to go off in your rant about how you don't know how to extricate talent from just play, production?
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree with a lot of what he said. I mean, what you're describing entertainment value. You're describing aesthetics with Allen. He's awesome. He is fantastic. But I don't think the talent conversation should come in when you're ranking quarterback, like when you're ranking guys, other than when you're trying to project them going forward, right? So the only time you're trying to project a guy going forward where previous evidence doesn't matter as much is college, right? And this is where we all missed on Josh Allen. If we said, well, look at his production in college, or look at the fact that he only had one really good year, how is that going to translate? Well, the upside that we're talking about is talent, right? Is arm talent and velocity and running ability and playmaking ability. So like all those things are true. But if you're saying who's a better quarterback, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, right? Throw them all in there. You should default to how they've played quarterback, not this theoretical level of talent if you're trying to rank guys.
Well, the problem
he's describing something a little different. He's not necessarily ranking right now. I don't like when this shows up in ranking.
I just think
because again, I always come back to who was more talented, Tom Brady or Cam Newton?
Right.
I mean, Cam Newton threw the ball faster. He didn't read plays faster. He wasn't as accurate. He didn't move in the pocket with a purpose better than Brady. He ran better than Brady. Like, who's more talented? And if you claim Cam, then it doesn't matter who's most talented. It matters who plays quarterback better, right? So that's where I don't always love these descriptions, because there's people right now like Tom Brady's still the GOAT, but Patrick Mahomes is more talented. Okay, so what does that even mean?
Well, that's the problem, is that it's describing like an abstract concept, right? If all we're talking about is physical ability, then Anthony Richardson is the most talented quarterback that's ever played the game, because we've measured it all, right? He's bigger, stronger, faster than any other quarterback that's ever entered the league, including Cam Newton, including Josh Allen, all these guys. Anthony Richardson is the most talented quarterback to ever play football. He's not anywhere near the best quarterback to ever play football. He might not be the best quarterback on the Indianapolis Colts right now, because a geriatric Joe Flacco is no discernibly different, really. So if all we're describing is physical talent, then it's irrelevant, because there's no connection between that and being good. If what we're describing is some kind of melding of talent, physical talent, and mental talent, then it's like a completely arbitrary, random assortment of, do I like this guy more or not? Because if that's what we're doing, then who's more talented between Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, all these sort of all-time great quarterbacks are all physically gifted, but also very good at playing the game. And then how do you weigh that against Tom Brady, who's physically marginal, but the greatest quarterback to ever play football? It just feels like a random way of just articulating, I like this guy. Yeah.
And look, like I said, I agree with Josh Allen is must-see TV. He's entertaining. I do think he's cut down on some of the disastrous plays, because it used to be like, oh, he'll make these special plays, he'll make these disastrous plays. The great plays outweigh the disasters. I think that's even more the case in the last few weeks in particular. You could probably make the argument that here's where talent could come in, is maybe elevating subpar situations. Because like what Allen does, like why have we looked at big time throws a lot through the years? I think a big time throw is creating a big opportunity, oftentimes that shouldn't even exist, right? Players covered, and you're the rest of your team's not necessarily doing great, but you are, and you're giving them an opportunity to create a big play that shouldn't exist. Guys covered, you're scrambling, you're creating. Allen does that as well as anybody. I agree. But if you're saying he's more this than Mahomes right now, like what does that even mean?
Right.
I would just say he's playing. I think you could honestly say snap for snap, Josh Allen's last 2 years have been way better than Patrick Mahomes' last 2 years.
Yeah.
Snap for snap, football playing has been way better the last 2 years. But it doesn't matter, because Mahomes has played better snap for snap in the playoffs, and he still has this knack for playing better. He's calibrated to win in the fourth quarter, just like the Chiefs are calibrated to win by 3.
I think you can clearly say that Josh Allen has been better than Patrick Mahomes over the last, whatever period of time you want to cut that to. But I don't think you can say definitively that Josh Allen is more talented than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think you can make the argument that Patrick Mahomes is as talented a quarterback as we've ever seen in the game. He's got an insane arm. His rushing ability is freakish in terms of being able to get the first down exactly when he wants it. And he's got all the intangible, clutch, field vision, all that kind of stuff. So I just don't know what we're describing when we say talent, right? even now, like this season, two of the best three performing quarterbacks in the NFL are Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. By pretty much every conceivable metric, you would say Josh Allen is physically superior to Joe Burrow. But is he more talented because Burrow is capable of the same level, if not better, levels of play in any given week? So again, I don't know what we're saying when we say talent. I just think it's this convenient catch-all bucket that we can just use whenever we want to make a point.
I agree. Cancel talent. That's it. Cancel the whole use of talent as a descriptor for quarterbacks when you're trying to rank them. That's why I'll continue to say at the end of the day, like Brady's going to be underrated despite being called the GOAT, and Burrow's going to be underrated, just the traditional pocket passer, even though Burrow wins out of structure a lot now too. Underrated. All right. What's next?
That's a disaster. And did you see week 17? Did you see week 17? I mean, week 17, they got to put, first off, they put the two games on Christmas. So it's at Netflix, as we discussed forever. Who the hell can watch an NFL game on Christmas Day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? I can't. And I hate Christmas, but I can't. At 1 o'clock on Christmas Day, it's Kansas City and Pittsburgh. What, am I going to stick the television set on at 1 o'clock? Sorry, hon, I'll see you later. Open up your gifts. Good night. I can't do that. So Kansas City and Pittsburgh is at 1, and Baltimore at Houston is at 4:30, and those are Netflix games. We got to make sure Netflix, some dope in Pakistan, can watch this football game. I mean, Netflix with their lineup, oh my God, they got everybody they got 9 billion people in the broadcast booth, whether it's the pregame show and everything. Half of them ESPN, half of them been fired by ESPN. I mean, it's absurd. Call me, I might go.
I can feel my blood pressure ticking up just listening to him. I genuinely do not understand how he's able to do that day after day after day without a blood vessel in his brain just popping on him and getting a stroke 6 months into it. I do not get it.
That was impressive.
Blows my mind.
He was my mind. I'm a rambler. That's why we have long shows. Part of it. I ramble. My brain goes in different directions sometimes. That was pretty special, though. He was complaining about 8 different things at once and just kept pulling them all off.
Because it's all random. It's not like...
Because I think he really wanted to be mad at the streaming service. Then he was mad at Christmas. Then he was mad at the timing of the games. Then he was mad that the games were actually good. Last year, the NFL did us a solid on Christmas Day. It was like Giants-Eagles in the middle. It's like, all right, you get a little break here. It's not a great game. But the NFL said, no, we're going to have our best games on Christmas. So he got mad at like 8 different things at once, which was impressive.
It just, I don't understand how you can manufacture that level of being worked up over everything. Because like I said, there's 5 things in that one rant that got him. Like, you and I are both capable of hitting that pitch of irate over something, right? And maybe it's environmental factors, you're tired, you're stressed, whatever, something's been annoying you, and then something sets you off. Or maybe it's simply you hate IKEA that much, right? But both of us are capable of hitting that pitch. But I can't do it if you just say, look, there's something over there, rant about those 3 things. I can't just create it from nothing. It has to be an organic, irritation gnawing at your very fiber of your being. But he's just out here operating at that level all the time. But there's no way his physiology knows that, right? His cardiovascular system doesn't know that he's faking it. His cardiovascular system is just perpetually operating at 150 beats per minute, trying to pump adrenaline through his brain because it thinks we need to fight whatever horrible thing is happening to him. It's ridiculous. That man must be like a walking ulcer at this stage.
Had a couple uncles Uncle Anthony had a little of that in him. Uncle Anthony was a little upset about almost everything at all points.
Okay.
His favorite team could be in first place. He's like, they stink. Doesn't matter. They're not going to win it. They stink.
I mean, look,
it's natural. It's natural for a lot of people.
We've gotten into trouble for commenting on Uncle Anthony in the past. I'm just saying that it might not be the best thing for your health to operate that way at all times.
We've gotten in trouble talking about Uncle Anthony?
Didn't you say that? And you being located around the family now, it's probably not the time to be bringing it up.
No, it's all right. Used to go to his house on Christmas Day every year. He'd make the nice gravy for us and everything. Rest in peace.
I will say, I think Mad Dog, because I didn't I didn't listen to whatever radio show that, made him famous across the pond. So I didn't have as much exposure to Mad Dog as, Skip or Stephen A. I think he's becoming my most hated Shouty Show person. Like, I hate everything about that shtick. I think it's a waste of everybody's time. I think it's a worthless contribution to the discourse. And it blows my mind that he can consistently do it and not just rupture an aneurysm at any given moment.
I think you're missing the point, though, because you believe in, I don't know, you like when people are being truthful with everything.
Substance.
Right? Yes. But he believes all of that. I mean, you've questioned whether Skip really believes this or Stephen A. believes this. I mean, Mad Dog really believes his Christmas is being ruined.
Yeah.
He's got to log into Netflix, has to watch a game at 1. He hates Christmas presents and Christmas or whatever anyway. So he believes everything that he just said, he believes.
Right.
He just delivers it with that,
but this the thing
that you don't like.
I go back and forth on this, and it's like, which is worse, this terrible thing, or this other terrible thing? I think ultimately they're both worse than each other. I hate somebody that is doing it all for show. Like, I hate it being a fraudulent bit because they know it's successful and it's engaging and it works, right? I hate that. But equally, I hate just as much somebody that believes every idiotic thing they're saying and they're all idiotic. Like, I hate that as well. I hate them both. That's why the Shouty Show thing is so frustrating, because whether it's like Emmanuel Acho, right? Is Emmanuel Acho that deluded, or is he doing the whole thing for a shtick? Either way, I hate it, right? There's no answer to that question that doesn't make me hate it even more. So with Mad Dog, I don't think it's better than Skip doing the whole thing for the views. It's the same. They're both contemptible.
I present to you next week's Shouty Show segment. If we could just clip that.
Mad Dog. Mad Dog's greatest hits.
As a future 2-time contributor after that, your face should be right up there next to Stephen A. and Nick Wright on the thumbnail. That was impressive.
I hate everything about it. I hate it.
Which is why we do it every single Wednesday. All right, let's get your PrizePicks lineup going here, Sam. You'll do yours today. I'll do mine tomorrow. PrizePicks, what you have this week?
What do I have this week? So, I'm going back to the well. I think I'm about 50-50 on whether this has broken my way or not. I believe that CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys superstar wide receiver, will get more than a half rushing yard. I'm going to get the one carry, and it's going to be good to break half a rushing yard. I believe that's going to happen. Deebo Samuel, the squeaky wheel game here. I believe that Deebo, coming off an atrocious performance when he was running his mouth a little bit, trying to say, he was just lacking opportunities. He then got the opportunities and blew them. I think they're going to go back to the well. I think they're going to rectify that, and Deebo will have more than 46.5 receiving yards. I think this game is going to feature Deebo, and he's going to make the play this time. And then I believe Tyreek Hill will have less than 70.5 receiving yards in his game this week. I'm just not buying the Tyreek Hill production this season. So those are my three.
They're head-to-head, Niners and Dolphins in that game. So you'll be watching that one closely.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got CeeDee Lamb Sunday Night Football with that the half rushing yard.
Yep.
Against Tampa Bay.
And that just needs,
I like it.
Just needs the one carry.
I think the CD one, they all make sense. Well, the top two especially make sense. CeeDee Lamb with how he was being fed last week. Give me a little recap
all
here.
Season long, right? Like he's been their feature receiver. I mean, his numbers are insane on the year. He's over 1,000 yards. He's got 94 catches. Like the numbers are absolutely nuts. They are feeding him as the principal guy within that offense. And then, it's hit or miss whether they give him carries. There was a stretch in the season where he got one every week for like a month, and then only one in the last 3 games. But either way, I just need the one.
Yeah, Deebo's interesting too because if he finishes strong here, there's going to be trade rumors about him. Has he lost a step? Is he as effective? We talked about New England for a while. Every single expensive receiver, if they can't get a free agent, they're going to be talking trade opportunities. So Deebo's got to finish strong here. So I like it. It's PrizePicks. You can download the app today. Use code Check the Mic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. I'll bring my lineup to the table tomorrow during our Week 16 preview show.
Love it.
All right, we have Stump Steve going today.
Oh yeah,
my voice is going again. It's great.
Perfect. All right, Stumping Steve. Where did I start this? Here we go. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Look at that graphic. That's beautiful. There have been 647 passing touchdowns this season. How many players have thrown at least one touchdown?
43.
54. Only 4 by non-quarterbacks. We can't
QBs.
verify that you're not cheating now that you're on location. You could be looking all these up on the side and nobody's out here paying attention to you. All right, here's one a lot closer to home.
On my
Simple.
iPad.
Simple for you. How many
Yeah.
followers does Steve Palazzolo have on X/Twitter?
93,800.
Yeah, see, that's dead on, which leads me to suspect that you did, in fact, cheat. Cheat pretty badly.
You think in the time that you asked that question, maybe I'm just vain and I check my follower count often.
Maybe. Or maybe you're like me and you have 78 open tabs on your browser and you just click to the Twitter one to see how many followers you had. I think that's
I'm not that quick.
an
If you
eminently
notice how quickly
achievable
I answered.
thing for you to have rigged.
The whole purpose of this segment is that I'm good at this, so be impressed.
Okay, fine. That was a very impressive way of reading out your follower count to people. How many more times likely, I believe that's supposed to say, are giraffes to get struck by lightning than people?
Oh, geez.
This is relevant to you as an extremely tall human being.
I was packing my car for this trip in a thunderstorm the other day. I was a little worried.
It's always the tallest thing that gets hit.
I'm packing bags and organizing the minivan, just beacon for the lightning.
I mean, look,
800 more times than humans.
No, only 30 more times. 30
it?
times more likely. So if it's simply a scalable height thing, I mean, you must be at least 2 times more likely to be hit by lightning than I am.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair. Only 30 times. I thought that might be like a trick question, like they weren't or something like that.
No, apparently 30 times more. Now, I don't know how much of that is just because giraffes are out in the open the whole time, as opposed to humans that can go inside. Like, that's probably relevant, right? But that is the number. Anyway.
30 times more likely. You have more?
I do. I have, in fact, 2 more. How many times does the average person's heart beat by the time they're 70 years old?
Like total?
Yes, total. What, as opposed to what? Like, what alternative answer would there be?
As opposed to like, beats per minute. Like, what's your resting heart rate?
No,
Toby,
it's
we can't
total.
do it right now. Toby, do you know?
Yeah, ask total.
9.7 million.
2.5 billion times, apparently. All right, the final question. It says here that Sam attended Technical University Dublin, which I believe is Ben's way of saying DIT. What is the approximate number of students currently enrolled?
At DIT?
I believe it's DIT. It could be DCU, I guess, but who knows?
About 2,500.
No, 28,500.
Oh, that's big.
Big.
I thought you were a small school guy. Really?
Yeah, allegedly. I don't know. I haven't fact checked this, but that's what the data says. That's what
I thought you were a small school
card
guy.
here
I just
says.
assumed. All right. Well, I haven't been good at this so far, other than my own vain Twitter
Other than your own
followers.
Twitter account, yeah, which seems quite an achievable thing to be able to read.
Well, we'll keep trying. We'll just keep trying at this one. It's been fun. I'm going to tell you about our friends over at PFF. PFF has you covered all season long with the best data, tools, and analysis in the game. Sign up for PFF Plus today to unlock all their famous player grades and premium stats. Push the playoffs in your fantasy league with the in-season tools and award-winning rankings from fantasy expert Nathan Yackey. Better get in there right now if you're in the playoffs. And stay connected to the next generation of talent with the best NFL draft coverage on the planet. No matter what you're looking for, PFF Plus has what you need to make winning decisions. Visit PFF.com. Sign up today for less than $10 per month. PFF Plus, powering winning decisions. Powering Check the Mic right now as well with all the data analysis. We use that for all of our previews and reviews, so appreciate the support from our old friends over at PFF. Go check it out right now, PFF.com. Anything else you want to cover here today, Sam?
No, I'm just Googling to find out what exactly. What the hell?
Look at this.
Oh, it's me, Ron Burgundy. Yeah, that makes sense.
some work's been done to poke fun at your ad reading. It's like Ross said with color commentary. You think it's easy until you got to do it. I mean, you think reading ads is easy until they say don't read this, and you read it.
Well, I see. It's not my first rodeo, right? I've had to read the ads previously. I think reading ads is quite easy as long as the ads are structured in a way where you can read them. Where it gets complicated, I believe, is where things are written on the screen where it's like, read this, don't read this verbatim, this one change up. Like, I think either it's a thing you read or it's a thing where you ad-lib a little bit on the fly and construct, yourself sort of where it gets messy, I think, is where you try and mix the two, right? And your brain is locked into, this is a reading thing. And then suddenly it's asked to actually, no, ad-lib, create on the fly. That's where I think the problems arise, personally.
So, a lot of shots fired at Janko there. A lot of shots fired.
So I was Googling to find out what in God's name Dublin, or what is it, Technical University of Dublin is, because I went to DIT, which apparently was a subset of Technical Institute or whatever the thing was. But DIT itself was established as an autonomous institution under the DIT Act in 1992. So by the time I rolled around there, it had been autonomous for decades.
Good to know.
So technically, I did not attend Technical University Dublin or whatever.
So we'll just throw. So I wasn't wrong about that question. Just throw it out.
You might actually be in the ballpark in terms of DIT's total number of students. You might be. You're certainly closer.
I was going based off of what I knew about you, not.
You were going off what you knew about DIT, not what you knew about Technical University Dublin or whatever it is. Check
your LinkedIn.
I don't use LinkedIn. That can't count.
When was the last time you updated your LinkedIn?
I plugged in DIT. If it then started talking about, Technical University Dublin, I can't be held responsible for that.
All right, so we've got our preview show tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. live here on YouTube. Next week, Christmas, we're going to be off for Christmas next week, our programming note here. We'll have a weird show on Thursday the 26th, the day after Christmas. We'll review the couple Christmas games that Mad Dog was pissed about, and then we'll preview the rest of week 17, I believe it is, next Thursday. So next week will be two shows, Monday and Thursday. And then right now we have Ariel Helwani. We talked to him a little bit before the Lions game, but a lot of stuff relevant right now. Talking Bills. He's a Bills super fan. Go check out or stay on right now and get to Ariel. And that'll be it for us today. So we're going to say bye, and we're going to leave you with our discussion with Ariel Helwani. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, welcome in to Check the Mic with a very special guest today, making his first appearance on this show. He'd previously been with us on the PFF NFL podcast, but welcome in Ariel Helwani.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Doing well, Ariel, doing well. Now, the last time you were on the show, in fact, this is how I know how far away it was. You were a 10-time consecutive MMA Sports Journalist of the Year award. Now you're up to 14 consecutive award-winning Journalist of the Year. That's a hell of a run, good sir.
Actually, I hate to be the one to correct you.
Are we up to 15?
We are up to 15, yes.
Wow, no.
Yeah.
A dynasty, no less.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But yes, 15 in a row. And so maybe last time was 11 and not 10. Who knows?
Maybe,
Listen, like I always say, and I appreciate it, it's not exactly a Pulitzer or anything like that, but it does come from the fans, and that does mean a lot because, fans and the public sometimes have a contentious relationship with the media, and so for them to have my back and to support me is a pretty damn cool thing. So I appreciate it very much. And by the way, in case anyone was wondering, yes, there are other nominees. It's not just me running by myself for 15 years. So
it's your own award that you're running.
Yeah.
And you've been prospering while we've been away. Tell us about Uncrowned.
Okay, yes. So I was working. So I left ESPN in 2021, and then I went to work for a whole host of people, and really just wanted to spread my wings and be kind of unchained, if you will, independent Helwani, all that stuff. The main two jobs, if you will, that I had was I was doing my show with Vox Media, the MMA Hour show that I had been doing for many, many years. And then so I reprised it, and then another show with The Ringer called The Ringer MMA Show. And this summer I decided to kind of consolidate everything, bring it all in-house, own my content, hire the team myself, and partner with the great folks at Yahoo Sports. So essentially license my show out to them, and we're working in tandem, and they've been fantastic. And so now we've expanded the the whole empire in many respects, to where my show is now Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then there's another show always at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. There's another show on Thursdays called The Boys in the Back, and then The Crack on Friday. You'll appreciate that name, The Crack, as in the CRAIC, as they say in Ireland. What's the crack? That's hosted by a fine Irish gentleman named Pete Carroll. And we've got the website uncrowned.com, and we cover not just MMA, we cover all forms of combat. So it's been going great. It's very exciting. It's pretty much like what my dream was, is to kind of have this combat empire. And it's it's now actually tomorrow will be 2 months since we launched.
Nice. Yeah, it's awesome to see. I'm glad it's going well. For people that don't know, you are a massive Buffalo Bills fan. The last time that you were on the show, you were actually the person that convinced Steve to finally apologize, to finally give it up to Josh Allen, that he was this fantastic quarterback. And actually, let's jump straight to the clip. I think we can play exactly how you got it done.
Like, quarterbacks just don't always get better every year. I mean, maybe he is at that level.
What if he's a once-in-a-generation type talent? What if he's going to continue to improve? Who thought Tom Brady would make it this far? Right? What if he's the next Tom Brady in that regard?
He could be.
But you're not willing to admit that.
No, there's a difference between my objective analysis and needing to apologize.
This man is a 10-time straight.
Fine, I'm sorry. Josh Allen's, you're right.
You're in over your head. You can't deal with this level of question.
He was just about to do it.
A compelling case. He's also, like a very kind #Bills Mafia member. So yeah, I apologize.
By the way,
apologize.
I will just say you're welcome, because I would say you apologizing some 3 or 4 years ago has aged quite nicely. Would you not say so?
Absolutely. I am. I've purchased a Josh Allen jersey. I made my official apology. I'm all in on Josh Allen. I was wrong with any, disdain toward his game coming out of Wyoming. Josh Allen's the man, and on his way, perhaps to his first MVP, hopefully to his first Super Bowl. Sorry about the voice again. But
no
is he the MVP? Is Josh Allen the MVP this year, Ariel?
Unequivocally. I mean, just look at what he did last week, and I'm still not quite over that loss to the Rams, especially you see the stinker that they pulled out on Thursday. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, how did we lose to those guys? You know what I mean? How did we give up, 44 points to those guys? And so that one hurts when he has like this unbelievable generational performance. I think he's been the best player in the league. And to me, the MVP is simply put this: if you take him off the team, what happens to that team? And they're not a playoff team, probably. I mean, there's no one who could do what he does. And I will admit, was I nervous going into this season? Not because of the Jets, not because of the Patriots. I thought obviously the Dolphins would be a lot better, and if Tua doesn't get hurt, they are a lot better. And so I was nervous that we would have a little more competition. Let's not forget that we won the division on the last game of the season against the Dolphins last year. But this has been unbelievable. This has been a smackdown. And so let's see. There's still a few more games left. There's some very important games, including this weekend. But I'm just so happy. Forget MVP. I'm so happy that everyone's finally giving him his respect. Let's not forget, at the beginning of the season, wasn't there a poll that he's the most overrated player in the league? And I would love to ask you guys this. Like, why has it taken so long? I know I'm biased. I'm a Bills fan, but come on. You see the talent. Sure, he'd get interceptions. Sure, they didn't get over the hump into the Super Bowl in his first few seasons. Why did it take so long? Why were people so adamant to call this man a bust? Why was he a bust in the eyes of so many people, including smart people? Why couldn't they see what the Bills fans saw?
I mean, I think early, when we last talked to you, that was at the end of his first sort of unequivocally fantastic season, right? Where he'd taken the giant leap forward and he was an amazing quarterback. And he's really been at that level basically ever since. I think the first couple of years, though, were more, if you had the motivation, if you had the bias to want to see him succeed, there was so much to latch onto, the incredible big time plays, the arm, the size, the playmaking ability, but the consistency wasn't there. So if you were looking for it, you would have been much further ahead down the road of saying, look, he's always been this guy. Look at all these big plays. But the negatives were also there those first couple of years in a way that he cleaned up dramatically after that point. I think that's why there was like a lag time between Bills fans, Bills, the Bills organization, people that are invested in him doing well, and then everyone else sort of saying, well, okay, now he's eliminated the negative side of his game. He really is the superstar.
And look, it's been amazing. The lack of turnovers, the leadership, the way he's played, and I think something that has helped tremendously is that we have a run game now, and we didn't have that, and that was the big difference between these Bills and the 90s Bills that I fell in love with. They had, a Hall of Fame running back. And it feels like Cook is well on his way now. In addition to the others who have emerged. That was always the thing that I felt like was plaguing us. Now we have some issues. There are some problems, in particular run defense. Defense last week was putrid. And sometimes we make some questionable calls late from a coaching standpoint, late in games, which is always a sore subject for Bills fans. But man, as I probably said when we first spoke, I just want one. And you guys know how hard it is to win in this league. And you know that when that window closes, it could take another 20-something years to get back there, if not more. I just want one. And I'm sorry to all the Lions fans who have been suffering as well. But please, just give us one. Just give me one so I can die in peace. Bills and Knicks, I just want to see those two teams win, and I'll be a happy man. I don't want to see a dynasty. I don't need to see 3-4 in a row. I don't need to see any more than one. I just want to know what it feels like on that Friday evening, on a Sunday night, and it's cold outside and I'm sitting on my couch. That's all I want in life, is to just see what it feels like and feel what it feels like when your team is hoisting that trophy and there's confetti and they're doing all the stuff with the hat and the shirt and the champagne. I just want to know what that feels like. That's it. And then I'm good.
Okay. Confidence level against the Patriots, which I think is the next game coming. The old enemy, they've fallen off, no more Bill Belichick, and things aren't going great there, but young quarterback Drake May. How confident are you against the Patriots?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'll say like 17.
Nice. And then the big one.
Waiting for that.
And please, like no mercy, like 55-3, like no mercy from now until eternity on that team.
And then the big one, confidence level for the postseason.
Yeah, that is a big one. I feel good. I really do. We have a solid run game. Josh is rolling. I mean, obviously, every time he falls, man, my heart stops, especially on that left hand. And Lord knows he gives us a lot of reasons to be like, oh, man, why do you have to put your body through that? But he is just such a gamer. And I'm just so thankful that I get to root for him, to be honest. I just love the guy, and I love everything about him, and I love the way he plays. So I feel like there's a path there. I'm not going to be too confident. I'll say 7.5, 8. Chiefs, Ravens, they worry me the most. I'm not afraid of the Steelers, and I'm not really afraid of anyone else, to be honest. So it's mainly those two, and who knows? Maybe they'll play each other in the second round, and they could beat each other up, and then we can meet the winner in the conference championship.
Another thing you said the last time you were on the show is that, you were hoping for a platform to be able to give your NFL takes, right? And we offered you that platform back when, and okay, it's taken us 4 or 5 years or whatever it was to get back around to having you on to deliver it. But what is your strongest NFL take this season, Ariel?
I don't think it's that strong, to be honest, but I think that Josh Allen is the MVP. I personally think he's the best quarterback in the league. If I was starting a team right now, he's my number one pick. I adore the man. We've come a long way as far as our wide receiver core this particular season. Obviously, losing Stephon, I think, was an addition by subtraction. He gave us some great years. Losing Gabe Davis hurt as well. I'll never forget that game against the Chiefs in the playoffs. And my second, take, in my humble opinion, Brandon Beane is the best GM in the NFL, because what he continues to do is incredible. I know there's some, there's some people who don't love McDermott, and I understand why, but that's my guy. And I try to be a positive fan. I don't want to be one of these belly aching fans complaining about everything. I really try to believe in, like, you got to back your team no matter what. In the trenches, these guys are fighting for us. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this is probably the hottest of takes, but it's time that people start putting some damn respect on Josh Allen's name. And I think it's happening this year because I don't see as much mudslinging as I've seen in the past.
I mean, even just last week, you rarely see a loss result in the kind of MVP conversation that was happening about Josh Allen coming out of that game, right? The loss seemed to enhance his MVP candidacy in a way you don't generally see. So I think you're right. It is leading.
It was incredible. It's just the defense was extremely disappointing. I'll ask you guys. There were two things that, I was harping on. Number one, I feel like they should have just accepted declined the holding penalty with whatever amount of time was left, and I know they probably would have gone for it, but I didn't like giving them another crack at third down. And then the other one was using that timeout on the goal line. I felt like they should have thrown the ball, and if you miss, then all right, at least the clock stops. Those are two decisions that I felt, who knows if we ultimately win the game, but I wonder if they could take those back.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree on both.
those.
The QB sneak was the worst.
Yes.
The QB sneak was the worst part of it. That and then the timeout for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. I would have taken the fourth down, and the fewer opportunities you're giving that team, given the way their defense was playing, the better.
Right. Yes. So those things frustrate me. And I hope Brady doesn't leave next year. But it sounds like maybe he might. That would be a bummer because we've had to go through a ton of offensive coordinators. But maybe Dayball's out of a job and he comes back home. I doubt it. It doesn't seem like he's best friends with Sean McDermott. But I would welcome him back. I love that guy. That was a great time. But let's see. Listen, if we win the Super Bowl, they could all leave for all I care. I just want one. That's all I want.
I want to get your perspective on this from a kind of media point of view. We've talked about this a little bit. It's a constant debate amongst fans. Who do you think the best announcers are for NFL football? If you were putting together a dream booth right now, who's your play-by-play guy? Who's your color guy?
Wow, that's a great question. I really like Ian Eagle. I honestly, I think he is so underrated in basketball and in the NFL. Like, I think he should be the number one guy in both sports, to be honest. And maybe on TNT, actually Kevin Harlan has become the number one guy. But like in the NFL, like I think Jim Nantz is a legend, but I think he's great. I love his enthusiasm. So I love that team. It's him and Charles Davis, right? That's the team for CBS. I like that team a lot. I think I would go with those two. And I know maybe that may not be the best answer because you maybe want to see me like pair two guys. Listen, I am okay. Here's a hot take for you. I don't think Tom Brady is as bad as people make him out to be. I really don't. I really don't think he's as bad. He's getting better. A lot of scrutiny. By the way, I hate Tom Brady. I am not a Tom Brady fan, and I'm not picking him, by the way. But since we're talking broadcasters, and this is a thing that is of great interest to me, I actually kind of hate him. But I think it's actually unfair. So that's my take. My first take. My second take is I also hate Troy Aikman. He's okay. I hate Tony Romo, and when I say hate, by the way, as players, because they played for teams that I hate. Romo, I know people say he's dipped a little bit. I like his enthusiasm. I like the energy that he brings. I think he's still fun. I'm going to actually take my answer back, and now that I'm marinating it, I will present this. If I could pick two men to call the Bills Super Bowl game on a national platform come February in New Orleans, it's Chris Brown. Do you know Chris Brown? And Eric Wood, the voice of the Buffalo Bills on WGR 650 AM. The radio announcers for my Buffalo Bills, they do a tremendous job. Chris Brown and Eric Wood. I love those guys.
I hesitated I know. We know that Chris Brown. I'm trying to figure out which Chris Brown for a minute.
No, I went regional on you guys. Yeah. But I do love them. And I love, like sometimes I'll just listen to them and turn it down because I like the Homer. I like the Homer calls.
Shout out to John Murphy, who had to step away, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, he was the GOAT and the voice for so many years. But they have a great rapport, and I'm a big fan of Eric Wood as well as a player, and then now he's become a great broadcaster. So he too is a Bills legend.
I want to leave time for our little WWE trivia right at the end.
No problem.
But I guess we would be remiss if we didn't ask you what was your favorite random quick story from that whole Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight saga, the whole thing.
Wow. Well, I guess when I'm old and gray and talking about this, the first thing that will come to mind was the look on Mike's eyes at the weigh-ins after he slapped Jake, because I know there was a lot of questions about, is this real? Is this not real? All that stuff. I don't subscribe to any of that, by the way. It was real. It was just a 58-year-old man fighting a 27-year-old man. And it's hard to fight when you're 58, especially after everything that he has been through. But when Jake stepped on his foot and Mike slapped him, I had to walk up to Mike to ask him a final question or two. And I have never seen that look. Forget fighter. I've never seen that look on a human being's face before. It was terrifying. And if you go back to the clip, like I'm standing like this, as far away as possible from him, because I was afraid that if I got close or if I said the wrong thing, he too would slap me. And credit to Jake, I'm not standing if he slaps me. I'm probably still knocked out if he slaps me with the ferocity that he slapped Jake Paul. So I will never forget that look. Was the fight great? No. Was the experience incredible for me personally, selfishly, as a kid who grew up loving this stuff and watching this stuff? Absolutely. And it was just amazing. Like I cover combat sports primarily, and I'm in this bubble 24/7, 365. And just the experience of the next day coming home and going to my kid's soccer game, and like all the parents who, I see these people every week, years and years, and we're just talking about our kids. And like, I don't even think a lot of them knew what I do for a living. And they're like, we were watching Netflix last night and you were on there. What the hell? So like to see how it crossed over and how it like just became the thing that everyone was watching on that Friday night is something that I'll never forget. And I'd love to do more of that. Obviously we all would, but it felt like a really, it felt like a really cool thing to be a part of. So I was proud of it. And I don't know, I mean, maybe you guys would appreciate this, but at my first hit on the broadcast, I quoted Marv Levy, and that was for all my Bills fans out there, because they wanted me to just kind of like set up what I was doing. And I was like, this sounds a little bit corny, so let me go with this. And we were at, AT&T Stadium, and I said, I know that we're here at the home of the Dallas Cowboys, but I can't stop thinking about what the great Marv Levy used to say to his players before the big games in the 90s. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now? And that's how I'm feeling right now. So shout out to Bills Mafia, shout out to the Bills. And then the Bills clipped it off, and I was over the moon, and then we were off and running.
That's great.
That's cool.
I love it.
We're all late 80s, early 90s wrestling fans here. I think you two are bigger fans than I was. I'm happy to cede that to the two of you. But Steve in particular is a particular type of weirdo where if you just show him like a screenshot of a match on YouTube, he'll tell you what the pay-per-view was, right?
So
we decided it would be kind of funny if we give you guys a few hints, and whoever shouts out the correct pay-per-view back in the day first wins the point. So this first one, clue number one, Mr. Perfect debuted his iconic wrestling singlet on this pay-per-view. It was his third pay-per-view in the WWF at the time.
Damn, that's freaking, I don't even know how you find that or verify that. Would it be SummerSlam?
No.
Royal Rumble 90. Royal Rumble 90.
Hint number two, it was hosted in Trump Plaza in 1989.
WrestleMania 5.
WrestleMania.
There you go.
Yeah. WrestleMania 5, specifically.
WrestleMania 5. Point number one to Steve. Let's give a second one. Let's give a second shot. This pay-per-view opened with a 6-man tag team match between Taka, Michinoku, the Headbangers, versus Kai and Tai.
Somewhere in 98, Ariel.
It's the right year.
Somewhere in 98.
Survivor Series.
This one's too late for us, I think. That was King of the Ring, 1998. Let's jump back in time again. This one took place on Thanksgiving Day.
Survivor Series.
Survivor Series.
Oh wait, are we on the same match?
No. Third one now.
One.
Okay. Wait.
This would be Survivor
but there were
Series
several.
90.
Correct. Survivor Series 1990.
But there were several on Thanksgiving. This is a scam right here.
Ariel, I'm just the host. I'm reading the things written in front of me. I don't have the answers.
All right.
You want the last? Okay. This next one, we're still in the early 90s era now. 11 matches took place at this event inside the stadium. However, only 8 were shown on TV in the USA.
What? I was about to say WrestleMania 2, but that was before the...
Yeah.
Hint number 2, the Ultimate Warrior won his WWF Heavyweight Championship match via countout.
Oh, jeez. Royal Rumble? No.
Nope. Hint number 3, the British Bulldog was carried by Bret Hart in this main event overseas.
SummerSlam 1992, Wembley Stadium.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Warrior faced Macho Man. That's what it was. Yeah.
By the way, if you're an old school fan, and I don't know, when is this airing? Is this airing?
I think pretty much
maybe
ASAP
later
once
today.
We put it together.
Okay, so are you? Did you hear about Saturday night's main event coming back?
Oh, I did. Yeah. Is that this week? When is that?
That's tomorrow at Nassau Coliseum, and the whole thing is old school, like the graphics, the music. They're going
nice,
late 80s
that's like
style.
That's like
Dick Ebersol producing it and everything type of
not
deal.
Dick Ebersol, not Dick Ebersol.
But
that's like the PlayStation's 30th anniversary thing. There's a mode where you click the PlayStation, it goes back to like the PS1 graphics and sounds.
I love that
and all that kind of stuff.
I love that stuff. I hope they do more of that. Apparently, they're going to be doing 4 of those. I remember vividly as a kid. So Saturday night's main event, for those that don't know, would happen once a month when SNL was dark. But I didn't quite understand how that all worked. There was no internet, so I would just tape that slot every Saturday night, 11:30,
just in case.
And I couldn't stay up. I'm like 8 years old, and I would wake up at like 6 a.m. and I would literally sit there on a Sunday morning. I can remember it like it's yesterday. And you rewind the tape, and you're like, please. I didn't understand the thing that it was once a month. Like no one explained this to me. So it would either be 3 times out of 4 SNL, or then the Saturday night's main event music would pop on. I'd be like, yes, or I'd be devastated. So it was always like I felt like I was gambling and rushing downstairs to see what was there. So it's very nostalgic and fun, and I'm happy they're bringing it back.
That's great.
Ariel, thanks again so much for coming on. Again, we should not let it be 4 or 5 years.
No. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Who knows? In 4 or 5 years, maybe we'll all be in different. In different jobs and whatnot, but hopefully not. And congratulations to you guys. Pleasure to be on as always, and keep up the great work and continued success.
And just like before, it's an open platform for you to come on and air your NFL takes anytime you're looking for it.
Hey, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, book me. I'm there. All right.
Yeah.
So it's a deal.